Hi, this is Dan Bullard, retired electrical engineer. Once again, talking to you from the front deck of my houseboat here on beautiful Moment Channel. Got my heater running, so I'm sorry if it makes noise. And yeah, occasionally we get cars passing by. We just had a tug go by a minute ago. Sorry I couldn't get that for you. I want to take a minute to talk about how I discovered harmonics. It's kind of an interesting story, and I do talk about it in my book, Harmonics, and also in Distortion. Way back in the 1990s, I worked for a company called Credence, and then I went to work for Schlumberger. That was doing, they were selling testers to Intel, so I worked at Intel for like a year and a half, 2 years. That was really kind of fun, but no time on mixed signal at all at Intel. They did send me to school, but and I did really well. In fact, I did so good I had to leave the class because I was showing the instructor up. But I went back to Credence after marketing came after me and said, "We want you." And I said, "Okay." And they paid me a bunch of money, and so I was happy with that. So I joined a group with a guy that I had trained when I was in applications and training, and his name was Bruce Tibbetts. He was a nice guy, you know. He was from the East Coast, from Boston, and he had worked at a lot of places, including LTX and some others. And he'd worked at Kokomo, Indiana, doing AM radios or something like that. Anyway, he'd worked on a lot of analog stuff. But when I trained him, he didn't really seem to know mixed signal that well. And I got him up to speed on DSP and FFTs and all that stuff. And that was pretty interesting. But then, so when I went to Schlumberger and Intel and then came back, he was in my group, which was kind of unusual. So we got along okay. He was a nice guy. Anyway, we worked on a lot of things together, did a few trade shows together, and I can't fault him for, you know, some of his trades. But anyway, so then later I went to Next Test, and then I went to Maxim, and then I did some work for Tektronix, and then I went on my own and did some stuff for Applicos. Now, I wrote articles for Applicos, and I was charging them pretty good money, and I did a lot of interesting things for them. But something had been bothering me about a book that I had. It was by Audio Precision, and it's a book that a friend of mine at Credence had given me, and he wanted to use it as a textbook for our classes on mixed signal. And I wasn't really a fan of the book, but like, okay, fine. But in that book were several mistakes, and I noted those, and I remembered those, so that when I was doing these articles and things for Applicos, that made a mixed signal tester that was similar, in most ways better, than Audio Precision. And I'd used the Audio Precision at Next Test. I was not impressed. I decided that I would try my hand at a video. And I'd been doing videos, you know, if you look through my danbullard.com stuff, you'll see that I did a lot of videos on other stuff. And I thought I had, you know, maybe a chance of getting some traction with people on other topics, but no. But I thought maybe I could try a video on mixed signal for Applicos. And so I wrote the script and I quoted Applicos at Price, and they were okay with that. So I went ahead and made the movie, and I showed them what I had, and it was a mind-blowing thing. I mean, you got to watch it. Applicos, my Applicos video, and they had a homebrew video, but it's nowhere near what mine was. So watch the video. In the video I show that Audio Precision doesn't know what they're fucking talking about. They're morons. Now, you know, I got nothing against Applicos. I'm sorry, Audio Precision. I didn't even know that that they were still in business. I just had to bash them for their stupid claims. So we posted the video on YouTube, and my buddy Skip posted it on LinkedIn. And that's great, you know, it got up on LinkedIn, and then kaboom, Bruce Tibbetts walked in and said, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. Dan is a moron, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't even have a degree, and I've got a master's degree. I'm superior to him in every way. Well, you know, that went over like a lead balloon. So then I decided to, that I had to deal with it. Now the Applecos people were not thrilled with that, because they'd been talking to Bruce. Bruce had started talking to Applecos management and said that Dan didn't know what he was talking about. That I was wrong, that I misunderstood what the Applecos, or the Audio Precision book was saying. And I'm going to take a drink from my mug here. This is my, I'm going to talk about it, this is my Bullard Laws of Harmonics cup, okay? And so all the Bullard Laws of Harmonics are here on my cup, and I can get this for you if you want. It's lovely. Nothing like drinking out of a cup that has your laws of something on it. And everybody should discover some laws of physics. But anyway, going back to Bruce, he was telling Applecos that you could not change the harmonic content of a wave by changing the DC offset, which I was clearly doing in my video. Now, watch the video. I mean, do you want to argue with me about that? Because that was real. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. That's really how it works. And I've done this experiment on many, many testers. I've done it on the STS 3000. I did it on the Vista Duo and Quartet. I think I did it on the Schlumberger. I don't really remember. I've done it on many testers. Anything that had an AWG and an analog capture instrument, I've done it. And it's really cool. It's a cool thing to do. And you can see how things work. Now, once that happened, I decided I had to fight these guys. And Applecos was not interested in that. And they said, and I quote from my book, by this time Applecos had grown tired of my harmonics hobby and refused to pay for any other videos that I made defending my original video. Okay? And so Applecos wouldn't pay for videos that I made to defend my video. And I can understand that. I took them to the cleaners a bit for that video, but that's okay. I should be able to. Now, I told them, you know, they said, well, you got to stop doing this. You got to stop making these videos. And they said, well, you know, quit it or else. And I said, else. I'm an independent contractor. I can do whatever I friggin' want to do. And the next day I was called into the office and I was fired by my good buddy Skip. Now that was hard to deal with, but it was the first time I've ever been fired. I mean, I wasn't even fired when I was in a high school job, caught drinking on the job, you know, so it was kind of a shock. But, you know, whatever, fine, fire me, big deal. So I did this, I started this thing where I was going to try to prove how this worked. So I started doing things that I did when I was at Tektronix. I learned how to do an FFT in Excel. And I started building a transfer function, and I started with a 2,000 point transfer function, and I realized that a 2,000 point transfer function for a 2048 point FFT was not good. It was not, didn't have enough resolution. So I went with a 10,001 point transfer function, and suddenly I began to see stuff that looked familiar. So I stuck with that, and I kept going. And I did experiment after experiment. I mean, I was unemployed, well, retired, but unemployed. And so I did all kinds of experiments, and I finally figured out what was going on. And it blew me away that nobody knew this stuff. I mean, amazing. So I had all these experiments, and I started working on a book. Now, I'd never written a book before, but my wife had just finished writing a book. So I started working on a book, and that was distortion. And if you read the book, you'll see me, I tell this story in the book. So it's kind of like a murder mystery / technical book. And maybe it's not your cup of tea, who knows. But I started working on the book, and I started doing all these experiments, and I came up with some of the most amazing things. Bullard Laws of Harmonics 1 and 2, and 3 and 4. I didn't come up with the laws per se, but I figured out what was going on there. And then I worked out, and I beat my brains out, oh God, on coming up with the Bullard Harmonics solution. Because I knew that there was a way to predict the harmonics for a square wave. And I knew that it must be something like that for other distortions. And I worked and I worked and I worked, and I couldn't come up with it. And I was talking to Maxim because Applicos had thrown me out. And my old boss, Don Greer over at Maxim, was amenable. He was listening, even though I'd quit. But I didn't quit him. I quit because they took me away from him. And Don Greer ended up buying my book, and he read it, and he said, do you think this is all true? This is all factual? I said, of course. I wouldn't say anything else. I wouldn't lie to you. And many other people bought my book too. I think that Applicos probably bought my book. And it, it went through some changes. I made some mistakes. I had a PhD check it out. I had a guy with a master's degree check it out. And I still had typos galore. And that's just the nature of the beast when you're dealing with books. But I fixed it. I'm up to version like 23 now. So it's pretty much sanitized. There's probably 1 or 2 things I might change if I had to, but it's okay. It's fine. And there's other things that I can do. There's plenty of other things I can do. And in harmonics, I've got 26 different appendices that you can look at, and you can go through, and it explains some of the things that I went through kind of fast in the book Distortion because I didn't really have the time to talk about it. I thought Bruce was back there in Massachusetts or Boston trying to beat me to the punch. I thought he must have figured this out from our discussions and his discussions with Applicos. Nope. He hasn't written squat. So I got through it, and I got it out there, and it was fast, but I got it done. And self-published, nobody else would touch it. I mean, I couldn't get anybody else to. I had one guy that said he would do it, but he'd have to do it in black and white. And if you look at the book and you look at my articles, it's all in color. Because I use red for even harmonics and blue for odd harmonics. So if you don't do that, if you don't print color, you're screwed. So I couldn't go with a printer who couldn't print in color. And luckily CreateSpace, which became Amazon's KDP, they do color and they do it cheap. So you really, I'm not saying you should buy the book. You can. But you get a really good deal because it's a color book and it's cheap relatively compared to everything else. Okay, so anyway, I haven't heard squat from Bruce Tibbets. I've been posting on LinkedIn, and I've been posting articles on LinkedIn, and I bash Bruce Tibbets all the time. Even my son says, "Oh, you're bashing Bruce Tibbets too much." Well, too fucking bad, It's like, come on, Bruce, get some balls, He doesn't have any kids, so he apparently doesn't have any balls. I guess that's the deal, If you don't have kids, you don't have balls. Maybe that's it. But anyway, and I came up with some really great stuff in here, and I really wish I could give it all to you, but here's something that I came up with at the end. And it's right out of the video. It's a quote from Mark Twain, and he said, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And it's all these guys out there that are making stuff up, and they don't know really what they're talking about, and people are they're expecting them to know what's going on. Okay? People are expecting them to know the truth, and they don't know the truth. They're making stuff up, and you see it all the time on YouTube. You see it all the time in books. There was a book that I found while I was volunteering for the library, which I did for years, and it basically said some ridiculous thing about even harmonics and odd harmonics and how you turn a square wave into a ramp or a triangle wave. Complete horseshit. I mean, these people are just making stuff up. I'm not making anything up. My laws are not just on a coffee cup and not just in a book. They're for real. And they're real laws of physics. They are not fake. Everything else out there is fake. So don't listen to anybody else. They're all morons. I've already said that. Everybody else, they don't know what they're talking about. That's why harmonics has never really been adequately dealt with. But I've done it. It's me. It's mine. It's the Bullard Laws of Harmonics. Nobody else's. I came up with it. I went through the pain. I'm still not employed. I couldn't possibly get a job. I don't have a degree. But I don't need a job. Okay? I'm retired. I can kick back and do nothing. But I'd rather, inform the world that a change has taken place. Someone has figured out something important about the world, and it needs to be known. And that's me. So, anyway, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you later.